G'day. Welcome to Does It Matter? The self, the persona, the construct that emerges from base consciousness. You, me, every one of the other 8 billion people on this planet. It makes life something to appreciate. Without the self, there wouldn't be any one to appreciate all of this. So the self is wonderful. The self is a fundamental emergent property of consciousness, without which base level consciousness would be a pretty paltry and spare thing, very dry, and there'd be nothing to it. It would be the same in everyone. It would be some kind of weird mold, conscious mold. But we're not. We have a self. We have this complex emergent series of emergent properties that mesh together through the brain constructs to create me, you, and everyone else. And we're sort of immutably wedded to it. And yet, it's the source of our greatest pleasure, but also our worst mistakes and our greatest suffering. If you can't not be you, I mean, we all take on different personas in different circumstances, for sure. Our persona is mutable to some degree. But if you can't actually not be you at all, if you can't detach or break free from who you think you are, sometimes there's a lot of things you're not going to achieve. You'll never achieve excellence. Never. In anything. So whenever we're really, really good at something, we tend to forget ourselves. We tend to get caught in the process, caught in the zone, deep in the theta waves of the brain. We're booming along and we've forgotten who we are. We're not thinking about ourselves at all. We're caught entirely in the fully conscious appreciation and focus of what we're doing. That most people have probably experienced at some point in their lives. Some people experience it regularly. That's what we need to do with ourselves. We need to be able to stop for short periods of time at least being ourselves. And we need to be able to re-examine ourselves and each other in that detached light, in that non-self vision. It's surprising what you'll see if you do that. And it can be, surprisingly, your greatest comfort in times of adversity and suffering, to detach from the self, which is genuinely suffering, and fall back into base consciousness, fall back into a level of consciousness where the violated and brutalized ego and the hurt feelings of the self are shed for a time. Also lets you examine them, lets you reflect on them. It allows you to process things that you could not normally process because they'd be too painful. So the self is great, the self is wonderful, but we have to be able to take it on and off every now and then so that we can run a tune-up on the self and run a tune-up on ourselves, and also recognize others more intrinsically, be able to see them more clearly when the self isn't in the way. Because sometimes the self gets in the way. It gets in the way of you being able to see what is right in front of you. You can't see it if your own self, all tangled up and knotted and in pain, it's like a dark forest. It gets in the way of the light. It gets in the way of the truth. It gets in the way of clarity and perception. And detaching from the self lets you escape that dark forest and actually see things more clearly. So keep that in mind. Yourself is beautiful, it's wonderful, but every now and then you need to take a holiday from it. Oos.